Hi, I'm Paul Winn. Welcome to Coast Connections, the show that brings you information and enlightenment about what's going on in Vancouver Island. And today we have a very interesting topic for you. It's called green chemistry. And with me I have three, I'll call them experts in the area of green chemistry to enlighten us. And I have here Glenda Hunter. Hi. And Dr. excuse me, Alexandra Weissfloch. Weissfloch. I knew I was going to goof that. And then Peter Diamente.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, now let's see, how should we begin this? So maybe one of you could explain for me, what is green chemistry?
So green chemistry is essentially, it follows sort of like the 3 R's, right? A recycle, reuse, and what's the third one? Recycle, reuse, and reduce. Thank you. But from a chemist point of view. So it's about not creating waste. It's about using chemicals that are more environmentally benign and less hazardous to humans. It's about reducing energy, about creating chemical products that are less dangerous as well. For example, insecticides that don't kill bees as well as the target insect. And it's also about using materials from renewable resources, those kinds of things. There's 12 principles of green chemistry, but they all revolve around the idea of sustainability.
And so I was thinking at VIU, they've decided to have a course, right, in green chemistry, along with, I guess, the University of Toronto was the other Canadian school that has, I think, a green chemistry program.
Well, there are many schools that have a green chemistry program, or more and more, not enough yet in our minds, but what's different about University of Toronto and Vancouver Island University is that we're the second university in Canada, and University of Toronto being the first, to become a part of this consortium of universities that are absolutely dedicated in every one of our students graduating with an understanding of green chemistry and toxicology and using those principles throughout their education.
To me, it makes sense. If you've got to get the people who are creating the products into a stream where they're going to say, look, we can do this better, we can do this so we're sustaining the environment and as you pointed out, we're not wasting things.
It often requires the students to think differently, and for us, the faculty, to teach differently. Because the thing about being a chemist is you're problem solving all the time. You got a task, you got to solve it, you got to make something new. Is there a better way to do it? Something that reduces the carbon footprint, that makes it more efficient, that uses less energy, some combination thereof. And so now's a good time to start implementing that new, different way of thinking about things. And like Alexandra had mentioned, green it. So that's what we're pushing for right now.
You know, like something that when we were talking before we started the show is about the acetone. I found that really interesting because, I use soap all the time.
Well, exactly. I mean, for chemists, we use acetone all the time it's one of the most common solvents that we use to clean glassware, and also it's used in industry for other applications. Paint shops and stuff like that, automotive systems, they use acetone to clean parts and to remove oils and greases and stuff like that. Unlike a soap, which loses its ability over time to sort of clean a surface, acetone, it just pulls it off and then you evaporate it off. It's like you're distilling something. So at that point, you're able to take it and separate it from its matrix that it's combined with and just reuse it again. It doesn't lose its properties, its polarity. You can just use it over and over. So that's what I started a couple of years ago in the department is we realized we're going through a lot of this acetone every single lab, week per week, month by month.
It's nail polish remover.
That's basically what it is. How do you recycle that? Well, you just polish it off, really. So that's what we started doing. We started collecting it. We added a stream only for acetone, separated from the other waste streams that we have for some of our other solvents, because there's so much of it. And every once in a while, when it get full and we have a couple barrels of it, you just distill it down, and you can use it right back again. Not for synthesis, but for cleaning.
Do you have to rescent it as well? Like if, say, for instance, it was going to be used commercially in somebody's home, can it be rescented so it has an aroma, a pleasant smell?
You wouldn't want to use in your house, but I mean, there's a difference grade between, for example, what we use to wash glassware with and synthesis. Synthesis is a very high purity. This isn't of that high purity, but it's getting there.
Where synthesis is the making of chemical products.
Yeah. Okay.
So, as opposed to just cleaning the glassware afterwards. And one of the huge advantages is that by Peter recycling all the acetone that we use, it really reduces the cost to the university. It also is definitely reduces our environmental footprint because there isn't the manufacture of it and the transportation of it and afterwards the waste disposal.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a win-win situation for the students.
Does this transfer down to the average person's household, for instance? The stuff that might be created through green?
It does. We teach the students how to use those chemicals that they're using in the household in our lab, so that they do understand and see the connection between some of the chemicals they're using every day and how they can change that to make it more green. And just picking up on what they're saying, sustainability in action is green chemistry. And we've been working in our faculty to teach the students to think about preventing waste from getting into the environment. So the Environmental Management Act and the hazardous waste regulations pursuant to it allow us to burn and bury waste. So we prefer not to make any waste and then it doesn't go into the rivers and oceans. And it's changing how the students think. It's transformative.
It's preventing rather than cleaning up afterwards, which the chemical industry has traditionally done.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a bit of an aside, but I think of our oceans. You know, I mean, there's so much plastic floating around in our ocean, you know, and everybody, because we don't see it, you know.
Was reused rather than discarded.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, and the same for the chemicals. Yeah. A lot of, you can see satellite pictures of chemical waste being poured directly into the ocean to this day in some places. Yeah. And there were, I think in the 1970s, I might get this wrong, there was a river in the USA that burst into flames because it was so full of chemicals. So the whole idea behind green chemistry is not letting the chemicals get out there in the first place. That's one of the main ideas.
It makes sense. I think, at least I get a sense that right now in our society, people are becoming more and more concerned about waste, and they're concerned about the environment. But I'm afraid, like myself, our knowledge is limited. You know, and we have sort of what I would call a sort of Hollywood version of what it is. You know, it's not based on reality. But I noticed that in one of the things that I was reading about the green chemistry from VIU was you had some points, like what were they?
Do's and don'ts of green chemistry. So these do's and don'ts are based on the 12 principles of green chemistry, which are difficult to understand unless you're a chemist. I mean, I don't want to sound condescending, but
it's part of our jargon. It's
part of our jargon, yeah. And so I created these do's and don'ts of green chemistry to be used anywhere from elementary school on up. And so I'll just list them. One is don't create waste. 2, don't have leftover or side products. 3, don't use or produce toxic and dangerous substances. 4, do design new, more benign products that work as well as old ones. Don't use any non-essential additives. Do reduce energy consumption. 7, do use materials from renewable resources. 8, do reduce the number of steps to make a product. 9, do use methods that are reusable and speed up the process. It often results in lower energy consumption, for example. 10, do use substances that readily break down in the environment and become innocuous in the environment. Because just because something is biodegradable doesn't mean to say that it biodegrades into non-toxic substances. Do monitor all sub-steps in a timely manner to prevent hazardous product formation and wasted energy. I liken this to putting a turkey in the oven to cook. You keep an eye on it, otherwise it's going to burn and become waste, and you
toss it
you use too much energy. Do ensure that safety comes first is the 12th principle.
Is it possible, I mean, or maybe it already exists, but a place where the average person can go and sort of learn something about it in, I guess, in layman terms, about green chemistry, but how it can be used and how they may be able to participate in it in their day-to-day lives, you know?
Well, at the layman level, you look at what the city of Nanaimo is doing with respect to its recycling program. They already have pamphlets that are put out there that are descriptive, and also they have imageries and icons that show at the very basic level how to recycle, what to put, where to go for it. You look at the Nanaimo Recycle Exchange, for example, you can send all your oils there and they recycle a lot of the solvents and stuff like that. It's at that level where you start. Then after that, you build up from there and you sort of go into more complex areas, understanding where it really starts splitting off. But there's many websites online that are available that give that kind of information that help you understand the cause and effect of it.
I'd like to point out some of those websites because there's a lot of information on the website and it's not on the internet and it's not all reliable. The NIH, through the US Department of Health and Human Services, has a lot of sites that are fantastic for use in classrooms for the laymen that talk about toxicology and the environment. One of them is the household products database, and you can actually look up a household product, because one has to remember that it's in the US, but many of our products are the same. So you could look up a household product such as a cleaner, a personal care item such as a soap, and you can link that to some information about it, which is written in language for the general public. That's an excellent site. Health Canada has, if you just Google Canada chemical substances, Health Canada has a site as well where they give information about individual chemicals as opposed to the products by name. Those are very useful.
And then of course our university is showing leadership, you know, our faculty and the Faculty of Science, you know, in showing leadership here, so we're a resource as well.
Yes,
so you
of
can
course.
come and visit
That's
us.
a good point.
We'd, you know, be happy to talk with anyone about this program because we're very excited about it. And
That might be on your doorstep.
well, that's great because we want students to come there, because students that have green chemistry in their portfolio, it makes them more marketable in the workforce. So that's another reason why we're doing this, you know, because we're there for students.
I would think that, you know, that for me that's an ideal approach to, you know, because you can have a basically like hands-on kind of opportunity, and you've got knowledgeable people that you can talk to firsthand. You know, like it's okay to go into Google and look at it yourself, but I did that and there's a lot of things I couldn't understand. You know, like I mean, I had a basic understanding of it, but you know, it didn't all make sense to me. And
I had, after this article came out in the Nanaimo News Bulletin, I had a lady call me up who asked me about how toxic a particular hair dye was that she used on people, and so I helped her find out about it. And so yeah, we're definitely willing to help people out.
see, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing is that part of the reason why we're sort of going about this now is because in about a year's time we'll be moving into the new science building. So now we'll have an opportunity to expand what we currently have, expand our ability to do green chemistry, offer more green chemistry programs, and also already have the foundation work done in advance. That way when we start in a new building, we're sort of on the ground running. So that's an important part about it. That way we're ready just to transition. And the moment we go to that new building, well, in that case, we'll be more open to the public. There'll be more exposure. People can come to us more often, and we can interact with them more.
Does that require additional equipment or different equipment in the new facility?
Yes and no. For example, the way we treat our water for the purified water is a little bit different. Instead of just distilling it, we use a reverse osmosis system, similar to what the city has right now for the water purification system. It uses much less energy than our old system, which was basically just boil it, which requires huge amounts of energy. We actually did a calculation on it, and we would reduce our energy consumption by about 75% using this new reverse osmosis system that had an output of 10 times over what we had before. So, I mean, things like that, it requires a little bit of investment at the beginning. But in our case with the new building, you have to spend that money regardless for the new building, so you might as well invest it from the get-go. And it'll pay off in spades later on.
But that said, it is possible to do green chemistry or greener chemistry without a big investment.
Again, you got to think about it differently.
It's absolutely nice. We're very excited about it.
Because I can see, taking students through that facility, and then they can see processes, and it's. I mean, it's not. Well, I think it's similar. I can remember as a young kid watching my mother put a cake together. Yeah. I love the cake, but there was a stage where I saw how it got put together, and I understood it in the separating of the whites from the egg. I mean, it was quite a interesting exercise, but it's not. And I sort of relate it to what you're doing. I appreciate it. It's like making a cake.
There's nothing quite like seeing it done.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you think back also, I was thinking about your comment about sustainability. You think back to the Montreal Protocol, where they're phasing out a lot of the HCFCs, or the CFCs that were used to create holes in the ozone. That was a landmark that they had done, and it didn't require much more effort to change it and to produce something that's more environmentally friendly that could be done on a global scale. And the effect of it was that they started reducing the hole in the ozone because of that. And they found out that using these HCFCs, which are the more environmentally friendly ones, were more efficient in the end for cooling and stuff like that, and also for compression. So sometimes you just got to take that step forward, and then you realize there's more out there.
There are several pharmaceutical companies who have adopted green chemistry principles in the production of pharmaceutical drugs, and they have found it's been sort of hard to get them started, but now that they've started, they found that it's really costs a whole lot less, and that's a big economical driving factor for them.
Also, it's safer for the workers. The moment you green some of these procedures, you're exposing the workers to less toxic substances, which pays off in the end for occupational health and safety, long-term health, and it's just a better environment to work in. So it's very beneficial, both economically and also with respect to work environment.
And you're less likely to have chemical accidents as well, some of these terrible things that we hear about.
Because, you mentioned industry is always concerned about cost. I mean, it's always the bottom line, that's, and if they can produce a product and it's as efficient and as good as, or even better than what they were doing before, and it's cheaper to produce,
Speaking of pharmaceuticals, in Victoria last year, they recycled 14 tons of pharmaceuticals and kept them out of the water, just by getting people to return their pharmaceuticals to the pharmaceutical company. So that would be a green chemistry practice. And 14 tons not going in there because, in the latest research with the salmon smolts, they have some residues of pharmaceuticals in their bodies. So we have to start thinking about that. And, that's not a difficult thing to do, is to return the rest of your pharmaceuticals to, as long as it's part of the city, their decision.
Don't flush them down the toilet.
Yeah,
No, and
that
you're
one.
right. I mean, I do that. I go through every once in a while. I see the expiry date on something, and I say, okay. And they'll take anything. Yeah. It's like they don't turn you away because you show up with something that you didn't buy from them. And I think that's again part of the green chemistry education. That's something the public can do to participate in. It's not difficult to put a few things in a bag, take it down to the pharmacy, and leave it.
That's important because the old mentality was dilution was the solution. But then you realize bioaccumulation starts kicking in. So you got the small things that sort of consume it, then the larger and the larger. So it sort of builds and builds. And then eventually what was very dilute becomes very concentrated in a small thing that in our case as humans will eat or consume or breathe or something like that.
Or an eagle, which will have 25,000 times the concentration of a substance than a little fish because they eat so much. But sorry. Another small thing that the general public can think about is, for example, there are dyes and perfumes in laundry detergent. And for the fraction of the second that you actually pour the detergent into the washing machine, you see a pretty blue color, but it has absolutely no use other than that. And the dye has to undergo production first, transportation, and then it ends up in our waste stream. For no good, doesn't break down for no good reason, right? So if you have the choice between a laundry detergent or a shampoo without a color in it, why not?
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's just that I think
those colors, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, that are showing up on the screen right now, those are all food colorings in sugar water. So that's an example of the green chemistry that we do.
Because it's I guess people think if they have something blue in their laundry, it must be something that's working and making the cleaning better.
Strictly aesthetics.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's aesthetics over the environmental responsibility of it.
And it's the companies, I mean, advertising, and not that I want to knock advertisers, but they want the song. They want people to remember our product over somebody else. If they're all clear, how can I tell I've got this one versus this one, right?
Yeah, you want yours to be the bluer type of white.
Yeah, that's right.
It's problem there too, that a lot of our clothing has plastics in it, so every time we wash, that's also going into the environment. So getting back to more natural fabrics like cotton and linen and wool, and thinking about those things. And the washing machine is something everyone can relate to, because the RDN in 2016 passed Bylaw 500, which enables people to recycle their gray water. So that would be water coming from washing machines and bathtubs and things, rather than dumping that water into the environment. We can recycle that for golf courses and such.
Washing machines. I mean, it's to me, it's a green thing, not necessarily chemistry, but we have bylaws in the city in Nanaimo that won't allow clotheslines, and people and people who like the diapers. I was thinking diapers, and suddenly you can't have the cloth diaper. You got to go buy something that's. What do you do with it? You can't. You throw it away. It's into the dump.
The most energy intensive machines in the house. It's absolutely unbelievable. So in the middle of winter, I can understand. I use a dryer as well, but in the summer you should be allowed to you should be allowed to hang things out. There are ways to keep it out of your neighbor's view and that kind of thing, if that's your concern.
Yeah, I don't know any. I mean, it's something you were saying that just made me think of that, because it's important in our environment to do things, so we're saving energy, we're saving this and that, and yet we pass a...
Because your comment about the RDN about reusing grey water is quite important, because you have to remember, every time you flush water down the toilet, down the sink or anything like that, it has to be treated. Yes. The more stuff there is, the more filtration, the more chemicals have to be done to treat to make it pH neutral. Vancouver or Victoria doesn't do that yet. I mean, they still just flush it out straight. But also there's the treatment of the water initially. That requires energy, that requires chemicals, it requires a system. We're lucky, we don't really waste water per se, we just borrow it. It comes from the mountains, passes through us, and then goes back to the ocean. But it's the energy associated with that. That's part of green chemistry. How can you reduce that?
We don't need to pour water that is fit for drinking onto our plants. We can use shower water on our plants and things like that. The gray water, exactly.
Nice to do. Well, we got about 3 minutes here. I mean, it seems, I know we've just started to talk and we only got about 3 minutes left. So I was wondering, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think is important that we should mention about green chemistry?
And that's Paul Anastas, was the founder of green chemistry in 1992. So I thought you might like to know that. Yeah. His name was Paul. Yeah. Paul Anastas.
Well, Paul
and John Warner.
John Warner.
Well, yeah.
Peter Paul.
Yeah.
It's a very, very strong combination these days. Right?
And I just want to put in a plug for Beyond Benign, which is a nonprofit organization in the States that is dedicated to green chemistry education. Anybody can go to their website, and they have a lot of resources for teachers out there from kindergarten to grade 12. And they're the ones who started the whole green chemistry commitment consortium.
Because if we start with the kids in kindergarten,
Yeah.
You know, and get them educated to that process. It might take 50 years, but you know,
It
it'll.
won't take as long because I already do a lot of science outreach at the primary schools and at the high schools, and they also come to the lab. Today I was at Cedar, for example, and I was doing outreach over there. It's actually happening a lot sooner than most people think. I'm going out there, other people are going out there, other educators, and we're already introducing at a very young age.
I'm doing workshops to train instructors and in green chemistry so that they can then use it in their classrooms.
I think of in elementary school we had a sign every time I entered the school that said courtesy is contagious. So maybe we'll have sustainability is contagious, you know, like you'll think sustainability, and it would be something that once young people get familiar what that means, what does sustainability mean, and it would have some resonation with them. Yeah.
So I'm a street keeper, so I go out on the weekends with kids, and we're looking at the salmon, the smolts, and last week we moved 450 smolts. The streams are starting to dry up, so we move them up to the rivers. So we're not putting any more chemicals into that river anymore, so I'm happy about that.
You must be, were you down at Departure Bay?
Actually, Nanoose Bay
Oh,
and
okay.
Nanoose Creek and Bunnell Creek.
Okay, because Wood Stream in Departure Bay has a counter, and the kids from the Echo School go there and count the fish and see them being counted and then released. Yeah. Anyhow, that's so it's yeah, which allows the fish to live if we can get ourselves sustainability up to par. Well, it seems like we're down to the last few seconds of the show, and I wanted to thank you for coming out and explaining. I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm hoping that the viewers have too. And for you people out there watching the show, get onto the sustainability bandwagon, and if you have any suggestions for shows you might like to see us cover, just look at that number on the bottom of the screen and give us a call, and we'll get back to you. Thanks very much for viewing.
And thank you for having us.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.